Hi guys, Jarrod here. Today I'm going to talk about something a little bit unique. Stephen was asking me to do a video on sort of the history of the Neo Geo AES/MVS and why the carts were so expensive and just what the heck was this thing all about. So to begin, we need to take a look at this. This is the Neo Geo MVS, the multi-video system. It was an arcade cabinet with interchangeable cartridges. This was really different and mind-blowing back in 1990 when it was originally released. The idea behind this particular unit was to save the people who ran arcade parlors some cash. A typical arcade cabinet with the one dedicated game costs thousands of dollars in some cases. Whereas an MVS wasn't too bad. Each individual cartridge would cost about $200 to $300 depending on what it was. Sometimes it was even lower than that. Sometimes it was $50, $100, what have you. Now, depending on which model you bought, you could actually fit up to 6 different cartridges inside one of these units. Now, that was very enticing. If you owned an arcade parlor, think about it. Well, you could spend maybe $2,000 originally, pick up one of these bad boys with 6 different games and collect loads of cash that way, and then interchange the cartridges as you went along for a fraction of the price as it would cost you to upgrade the more traditional arcade cabinets, where not only do you have to replace the actual cabinet itself, but you have to figure out what to do with it and keep enticing customers to come along. Now, in mid-1990, SNK had the idea of bringing the same experience to customers at home, but originally the plan was maybe we could create a home console that we could maybe sell to rental chains and they could rent it out to customers. And the reason for this is because their plan, their vision was to create the MVS, the exact same experience, and bring that to the home. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. What you see here is the Neo Geo AES, the Advanced Entertainment System. And like I just said, this originally wasn't intended to be released to the masses, as it were, but due to popular demand, it eventually was. And when this debuted, first it debuted in Japan before it was brought over to North America, but I'm going to just zero in on the North American market for now. When this was originally released in North America, and when I say widespread release, take that with a grain of salt because it was never really mass produced in the multi-millions or anything. It was released in North America in 1991 for $650. Now think of that. Today, I don't even know with inflation how high that is, but it would be staggering. And the reason for this is very simple. Like I said before, this was a true arcade platform being brought into the home. In 1991, 92, what have you, when the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis were really hitting their stride, they could not compare to what the Neo Geo AES was offering players. This was just mind-blowingly detailed. I mean, the colors, the power of the system, sure, it was a 16-bit, even though we like to say it was 24-bit system. It was significantly more powerful than any of the other home platforms at the time. So I get quite a few questions of why the carts were so expensive. Well, the carts ranged about $200. The MVS ones, it really depended. Sometimes the arcade cabinet ones would be significantly less, like I mentioned before. But with the AES, most of the time they started around $200 and they went up. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, like I said, it wasn't mass produced, meaning every single game, if it had like a print run of say 5,000, those are unique, it's like a collectible, if you will. And so when SNK had to release these, they didn't have a choice. They couldn't release these for $60 or something like that. I mean, these games were like 400 times more powerful than any Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo game on the market. And, just the technology that was behind that, it cost. And it really, really did cost both the consumer and SNK. But it's for that reason why the AES sort of stayed in like a niche setting for all of its life. There were a couple of different platforms available. Well, not really platforms, but more of configurations, rather. When the system came out, there was a $650 one that had 2 joysticks and 2 games. It was referred to as, I believe, the Gold system. And then there was the Silver system, which retailed for $400, and that came with 1 joystick and no games. Now, there was one other big difference with the AES before we move on, and that's the inclusion of a memory card. Yes, you had to buy it separately, but the idea was really ingenious, and that was you could actually save your games on the AES and then bring the memory card to the arcade and continue your game on the AES. You don't see that very often, but you know, this was mind-blowing stuff. Like I say, back in 1991, we had never seen anything like this before. Then in 1994, SNK released the CD, the Neo Geo CD. And the idea behind this was to try and cut costs and allow more players to experience their games, because they didn't really release their titles on other platforms at this particular point in time. And CDs were much cheaper to produce than their AES carts or their MVS arcade carts. So, you know, it was a good idea. It was let's get out there and get more people involved in our titles. One feature that I really liked with the CD, I keep going to say CDZ because that's the model that was released in Japan, which unfortunately never made its way here, with a faster CD reader inside. This one only has a single speed, which makes the load times horrendous. So if you're going to go out and buy one, try and get the CDZ because it's pretty awesome. Anyways, all of these different platforms, they all have interchangeable joysticks and controllers, which is great. So if you prefer one over the other, just unplug it and plug it in. Boom, you're good to go. So yeah, the only reason that the Neo Geo CD even existed was to become a more affordable option for the hardcore SNK fans to experience all their different titles. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the Neo Geo CD was only supported for about 5 years. Now, I know normally you're like, yeah, well, that's perfectly fine, but you have to understand that the AES was supported, we typically consider it from 1990 because the AES did exist in 1990, even though it wasn't available to the masses, but the MVS was identical technology, and that was from 1990 all the way until 2004 when SNK moved on. And think of that, that's 14 years of releases. Now, if you're going to jump on board this, you have to understand that for the most part, up until 1996, the platforms saw significant releases, like quite a few a year. And then in 1997, it started to really cut down to around like 10 titles, 98 a little less, 99, maybe 4 titles. And from that point forward, you could count the releases on one hand. You know, you'd be lucky if in a year you got 3 games. And it could be like something like Metal Slug 4 or 5, and the latest King of Fighters, and maybe a new Samurai Showdown, and that was about it. So, you know, it really did start winding down, and the only reason that they even stuck with it was that this was their hardware. And, you know, it's debatable why they didn't really move on, but in a lot of ways they did, because a lot of these games that you're seeing here, they were all released for other consoles. I mean, they were released for the PlayStation 2, for the Dreamcast, obviously. You know, SNK wasn't stupid. They wanted to continue to be profitable as a business, but they also had their hardcore following, so they figured, you know, why not? If people are willing to spend $500 on a cartridge, by all means, let's give it to them. And this is where the collectible nature comes in. SNK wasn't really going mainstream with any of these platforms. They knew that well in advance. So when people ask me, like, well, why did they continue to release games, you know, in 2002 and 2003 when they were only making 3 games a year? It doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense. They were just, you know, sticking by their hardcore fans. And like I said, I mean, in 2000, they released only 100 copies of the King of Fighters 2000 in the North American market. Today, if you have that, First off, I've only seen it sell on eBay once or twice, and it goes well over the $1,000 mark. So it's more than a console now. It's more than an arcade platform. It's now actually become an investment, and it is the holy grail of like sought after consoles. You can pick up a Japanese one of the AES. They're fairly common for about $200. That's actually a really good deal if it's in pretty good condition. The games are still quite expensive, so my recommendation is go for the Japanese ones, because the way this unit works, or this platform works, is it's completely region free. However, the BIOS inside the system will detect what region you're in, if that makes sense. What I mean is like this: you buy an American console, but buy all Japanese games, you're going to play all your games in English with no blood, because the system itself is North American. Whereas if you buy a Japanese system, the more common ones that you get for around $200, and you buy all your games in English, they're all going to be in Japanese, but will feature blood. Okay, that's the way the system actually works, which is why the modified Japanese system is one of the most sought after platforms out there, or a modified American one, doesn't really matter. And what that allows you to do is, it comes with new connections, so you can connect it to an HD TV and it looks sharp as hell. And the BIOS has been reconfigured to allow you to select between Japanese and American text, and also the different features like the blood and what have you. In 2004, SNK officially moved on from the MVS/AVS hardware, and the reason for this was quite simple. They needed something that was a little more robust and, that has a little more horsepower in it, but nobody can really complain. I mean, at 14 years of support, the MVS and AES remain just an incredible platform for those that enjoy fighting games and horizontal shooter, running gunners, whatever you want to call it, like Metal Slug. I hope you understand now just why the platform itself remains so expensive, and why these games continue to fetch, prices in the hundreds and sometimes even in the thousands. And it's, like I said before, they have become collectibles, and to a lot of players, they're the ultimate versions of these games. So I hope you had a good understanding of everything that SNK was trying to do, and why this platform is, just so sought after, and why it's considered the holy grail of video game collections. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, or if you'd like to learn more about the Neo Geo platform itself, well, just stay tuned, because in the coming year I'm going to have a lot more to discuss and show you guys. Thanks for watching.